Hey guys, my name is Clara and I have a question for you. If you could eliminate or reduce weather phenomena like droughts, floods, fires, and the death of whole species, would you? Well, now that I gave you about 5 seconds, I'll answer this for you because it's pretty easy. Yes, who wouldn't want to live in and exist in a world where weather disasters don't exist? Well, the time to act is now because there's only so much time that we have left until there's no going back. The reason that there has been such an increase in all these natural disasters is because of climate change. According to NASA, climate change is described as a change in average conditions such as temperature and rainfall in a region over a long period of time. An example of climate change would be the way that 20,000 years ago, this earth was covered in glaciers. It was just covered in ice. Just like in the movie The Ice Age, the cartoon that we all grew up watching, yeah, like that. Just like that, there was glaciers before, and now, 20,000 years later, they melted. Why? Because of global warming, climate change. The temperatures changed from really low to really high, which has caused the ice to melt. So that's only one of the examples of climate change. Today I will be talking specifically about global warming, why it's happening, how it's affecting us, and finally how we can help solve this issue together. First, let's understand global warming and what exactly it is, because I'm sure most of you guys have heard about it a whole bunch, but nobody really, well, a few of you probably do, but a lot of you probably don't exactly know what it is. So according to NASA's Earth Observatory, global warming is the unusually rapid increase in Earth's average surface temperature over the past century. People often talk about global warming like it's a conspiracy, like it's something fake and made up by the government, but I can assure you it's very much real and it is happening now. We know for a fact it's getting warmer, but that's only one of the many signs of global warming there is. According to 80 scientists and the Washington Post, Antarctica's ice sheet is melting at a rapidly increasing rate. It's now pouring more than 200 billion tons of ice into the ocean and making the ocean rise by 0.5 millimeter a year. And I think that's just crazy. Eventually the ocean's just gonna take us over if we keep going like this. So I think we really need to solve this issue. Just in the past decade, the melting rate has tripled. Other signs of global warming include ocean heat, humidity, snow cover reducing, and snow melting earlier. Here in Fresno, California, we all live here. We all know how close the mountains really are, and I don't know if you guys have noticed, but I feel like every year we have less and less time to go up to the mountains and enjoy the snow. Why? Because it's just melting that much faster every single year. Those are only some of the examples of the kind of symptoms of global warming that are right under our noses that we choose to ignore. Now that we know what global warming is, we should know why and exactly how it's happening. Global warming isn't something that just happened overnight, it's a process that took many centuries. As stated by the Union of Concerned Scientists, global warming happens when CO2, which is carbon dioxide, and other pollutants and greenhouse gases kind of just gather up at Earth's atmosphere. Like, say this is Earth, and all the CO2 and the pollutants and greenhouse gases are just stuck up here. So then all of the pollutants are soaking up radiation and sunlight, which then causes the Earth's temperature to rise. Usually the radiation would kind of just bounce off and go into space, but because of all the pollutants that soak it up, they kind of just stay stuck, which causes the Earth's temperature to rise. And according to the US Environmental Protection Agency, it is known as the greenhouse effect. So I believe that the reason for global warming is pollution, which in great part is due to the burning of fossil fuels. And those fossil fuels are burned mostly because of our need for energy and electricity. Coal burning plants are by far the biggest pollutants. And number 2 is transportation sectors, which create 1.7 billion tons of CO2 every year. Global warming affects every part of our lives, like human health, water supply, agriculture, transportation, and etc. For example, listen to this. In some regions, prolonged periods of high temperatures associated with droughts contribute to conditions that lead to larger wildfires and longer fire seasons. Does that sound familiar? Because it sounds pretty much exactly like California, Fresno, literally anything here in the valley, basically. First, the temperature started to rise because of global warming. And then there was some years where we were in a really bad drought because there was little to no rain. And now we have really bad fire seasons where we just have to be careful. And I'm pretty sure California spends a lot of money and a lot of resources on these fires that could be put into other things if it wasn't for global warming. Like I said before, climate change and specifically global warming leads to a lot of things like hurricanes, floods, fires, and the death of whole species, and just a cascade of really unfortunate events for animals and humans and anything living in this earth. So now that we know what global warming is and how much it negatively affects us, let's see what we can do to solve it. And I'm not saying it's going to be easy. I'm not saying it's going to happen anytime soon. I'm just saying that both individually and as a community, we can do our part in order to slow down and reduce this path that global warming has paved us. We can change this. There is still time as of now. One thing we should all focus on is reducing our carbon footprint, which is basically anything that you do that kind of gives off pollutants and releases CO2 into the atmosphere. Some of those things can be like driving less, I don't know, maybe getting an electric car, walking more, flying less, eating less meat, wasting less. For example, you can recycle, or what's trending quite a lot recently is thrifting and going to secondhand stores, which obviously causes way less pollution, way less waste, which is very helpful in slowing down global warming in general. And even though I wish that would make a huge difference and we can just as a community, as individuals, stop global warming, it wouldn't, because most of the CO2 that's released into the Earth's atmosphere every year comes not from us, but from big industries and corporations. According to the Carbon Majors report, just 100 companies are to blame for 71% of the CO2 that's released into the atmosphere every year. Which leads me to believe that the government really has to make them held accountable for all of this damage that they're doing to the earth and therefore to us. I think that there needs to be a limit or some restrictions on how much CO2 they can release, or they should at least pay. I don't know. I think we should definitely urge the government to take action on this stuff. We could petition. And even though we're not all to blame on the CO2 that's being released, we can do our part. We can reduce the carbon footprint, and we can for sure slow this thing down and maybe win us a couple more years of this beautiful earth that we have. In conclusion, global warming is a very serious issue. The consequences have been far too serious, and there has been way too much damage for us to continue to ignore these things and just think of them as conspiracies. We have to put our foot down on corporations and limit our individual carbon footprints. If we want our kids to get to enjoy the same earth that we got to enjoy, sometimes life can be tough, but after all, this earth has been here for us, and we need to take care of it. And even though we haven't been doing a very good job, we can start now. It's not too late. We still have some time. So please sign petitions regarding global warming and climate change. Even just recently, the Trump administration tried to pull the U.S. out of the landmark Paris Climate Agreement, which basically aimed to prevent global catastrophic temperatures from rising. So yeah, even they don't care, and we have to show how much we care in order for them to reflect that. So make your voices heard and take action.